One of my pet peeves is when the media in Ghana report statements made by politicians without providing critical context to those statements. Case in point, US tariff on Ghana. US has not removed the 15% tariff it put on goods coming to the US from Ghana, contrary to reports in the news. Of course, those news reports are based on a Facebook post made by Ghana's Foreign Minister, Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa. Okujeto posted that the US has removed the 15% tariff on cocoa and other agricultural products coming to the US from Ghana. That statement is true, but also misleading. What is misleading is the fact that agriculture products, including cocoa, is the only thing out of Ghana's exports to the US which has had its tariff modified. Of all Ghana's top 5 exports to the US, cocoa is the only one that has the tariff reversed. Every other thing that Ghana exports to the US still has tariff on them. Right? Except the fruits. And cocoa is considered a fruit. You understand? And so it's important that we add the context to that. And for even shits and giggles, I will say that Ghana is the number one exporter of shea butter to the US, and the 15% tariff is still on shea butter to the US, which means that Americans are still going to be ashy this winter. Because even if you don't use shea butter on your skin directly, the skincare product you use probably has shea butter in it. So I'm saying all this to say it is important for the media in Ghana to not report news statements made by politicians like they are gospel. Add context to these statements. The politician is doing his job. His job is to make his party look good. So he's going to only share statements or parts of the story that benefit himself and his party. Okujeto Ablakwa is not wrong for doing that. Who needs to be critical is the media. The media needs to tell the full story. And the way you tell the full story is by adding context to anything that a politician says. Anything. Even if you agree with that politician, you need to add context to say, well, he said Wache is brown. He is right because of so and so and so and so reason. I know somebody will say Wache is not brown, but I don't care. There are only 5 colors in my eyes: red, gold, green, brown, black. White is... Anyway, my point is I'm trying to sound serious and fun at the same time, because sometimes I think that I don't want to lose people when I'm talking about important issues like this. So I add some jokes from time to time to make it lighter for people to digest. Anyway, my name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics from the perspective of an African. If that's something you are into, subscribe to this channel. Now, let's get right into it. So we will talk about the tariff that President Trump has removed and then link it back to Ghana and the rest of Africa. Now, in the US, they have elections every 4 years, like most countries. But within those 4 years, they have another election called midterm election. So midterm election will happen 2 years after the main election. So there will be a midterm election next year, 2026. But between the midterm and the main election, there's something called off-cycle election. Americans are always voting, like every time they are voting on something. Off-cycle election usually are local government elections. And so they don't necessarily affect things on the national level, but they provide the president and his government at the national level with context of what is happening on the ground, whether they are popular or not. It affects the off-cycle elections, right? And so this off-cycle election that happened in November, like this month, the Republican Party was decimated. They lost in so embarrassing way that they couldn't propagandize their way out of it. Of course, they lost in places where if they had not lost the way they lost, they could have said, well, this is a democratic stronghold. But they lost in a way that was so bad. So if you are losing, what do? You change course. So President Trump, even though he's on TV saying the economy is good, he knows the economy is not good, right? Because President Trump ran on the fact that he was going to reduce the price of groceries. He used the word groceries when he wins power. And it's been a year and he has rather increased the price of groceries. Of course, the president doesn't determine the price of goods, but President Trump directly increased the price of groceries by putting tariff on goods coming to the US from other countries, right? And so those tariffs has been negatively received by Americans because of prices. And so what happens is when Trump lost the election or Republicans lost the off-cycle elections, Trump realized that he has to live up to the promise he made to win the election. So he has started putting in place some policies to reduce price for Americans. One of those policies is he has removed the tariff he has placed on groceries coming to the US. So basically, he is solving a problem he created himself. And so one of those grocery products that the US is removing tariff on is cocoa, which is Ghana's second biggest export to the US. And another one of those products or group of products that are being affected by the tariff modification is fruit. Fruit are the seventh biggest export to the US from Ghana, right? And so if you look at the top 10 exports Ghana makes to the US, only 2 out of them have been affected by the tariff reversal that President Trump has made. All the other goods that Ghana exports to the US, crude oil, rubber, cassava, because cassava is not really considered grocery in the US for some reason. What again? All the other things that Ghana exports to the US are still under the 15% tariff. I mentioned shea butter earlier. Shea butter is still under the 15% tariff, even though it's an agricultural product. So I'm saying this to say agricultural products, some of them are still under the tariff. And so when the minister spoke, he was announcing the part of the modification that benefits him and his government, because the US and Ghana have had a good-ish relationship this year. The US has had a very terrible relationship with the rest of Africa this year. Ghana relationship with the US, even though it's not at its best, is still better than most of Africa. And so President Mahama and Okudzeto-Ablakwa are all trying to make it look like it's better than it is. That's what Okudzeto is doing. He's trying to make it look like Ghana's relationship with the US is better than it is. But Ghana has had better relationships with the US, right? Ghana has had some of the best relationship with the US out of every country in Africa, from Bill Clinton to President Bush to President Obama. The first African country he traveled to was Ghana. President Trump, in his first term, had a good relationship with Ghana. His wife even visited Ghana when, she was in office. Actually, Ghana and I believe Kenya were the two countries, the first two countries Melania Trump traveled to when she was first lady. So Trump first term had a good friendship or relationship with Ghana, and Biden also had a good relationship with Ghana. Now, Trump, because Ghana has a history of having a good relationship with the US, even though Trump's relationship with Ghana is bad, it's still relatively better than other countries. So the current government in Ghana can still, boast about good things that is happening between Ghana and the US, while bad things are still happening. But I'm making this video to point out this. the tariff reversal has nothing to do with Ghana. It has everything to do with elections in the US. I live here. I know why Trump is doing this. People are angry with Trump because people were okay with putting up with Trump. People don't have, President Trump was unpopular because of things he said and did when he was running for office. People were okay with overlooking all that because of the economy. People believe that indeed, if Trump came to power, he was going to make the economy better. So they are willing to put up with anything as long as the economy is good. But unfortunately, Trump has not been able to bring the economy from where it was before he took office, because the economy was a little bit bad under Biden. But now the economy is even worse under Trump because of the tariff. Of course, one thing I try to do when I'm reporting or speaking of economies is you can always have figures to say that the economy is good. You can look at GDP, you can look like at inflation, interest rate, and say, yeah, the economy is good because of these things, right? But those numbers do not reflect what people feel in their pockets, right? So you also have to add context to, yeah, the numbers say this, but on the ground, they mean that. So on the ground, the economy is bad for the US because of the tariff. And the reason why he removed the tariff on groceries specifically is because we are going to the holiday season. Today is Tuesday when I post this. Thursday is Thanksgiving Day. Is a lot of feasting, and the beginning of the fun side of the holidays in the US begins with Thanksgiving, right? And so people will be buying more and more food as they hang out with their family. That is why the tariff on grocery price is coming down at this point. I just wanted to add that context. Important. I said context, adding context to what is being done in the US and how it is impacting Ghana. I wanted to point that out for people who care about the tariff and how it affects our lives in Ghana. Anyway, thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel if geopolitics and trade is something you are into. And tell me in the comment if you disagree or agree with my anger at the media in Ghana for how they report things like this. And also, yeah, you can cast me out if you think I'm doing too much. I'll love that too, because I need to know what I'm doing right and wrong, because I'm doing this by myself. All right, we'll talk later. Thank you for watching.